Chris Chinnock here for Display Central. I'm in the LG booth at InfoComm 2014. I've just had an update on some of the panels and signage that they're showing here at the event. And in back of me is an example of a partnership they have with a company called MRI, where MRI will take the panels from LG. They'll build these full, very rugged enclosures, and with all a completely sealed unit. There's all this. The air is completely sealed within this thing. There's no air conditioning. There's no air that goes in and out. It's all passively cooled, and it will survive in the bright sun for, they say, 10 years. Plug and play. Now it's much more expensive than if you could buy an open panel from an integrator and build your own enclosure, for example, for an outdoor display. But at least it's a plug and place and play for 10 years. They've also had an interesting product in the top corner. They can put a little sensor that's looking both outward and inward. So when it looks out, it's sensing the ambient light and can adjust the brightness of the display. And when it's looking inward, there's actually the content will embed a little watermark up in the very top corner. It's almost invisible to see, but the sensor can see it, and that will validate that either the content has been played or perhaps that the display has gone off, and that can then alert people that you have a problem with your sign. The other thing that LG does is they're now integrating WebOS into their professional products. At CES, they announced this as a big initiative for the consumer TVs, but I think the big advantage on the professional side is that when you develop an app for WebOS, it can easily be ported then to, or I think it either ported or works interoperably with Linux, with Windows, with iOS, and Android. So it's very powerful in terms of being able to interact with the display and fix the display from basically any platform and any screen. The other thing that they're showing here, again kind of borrowed from the consumer side, they're showing in front of me, is a version that they call M+. And this is a version of their new pixel structure, the RGBW, red, green, blue, white pixel structure that on the consumer side is being adapted for ultra-high definition TVs. This is their so-called green product. And they manage, they basically can do sub-pixel rendering within those RGBW elements to create a UHD-like image. At least that's how it's marketed on the TV side. When they do it over here on the signage side, it's still a full HD panel. But now what they can do is say we have more flexibility to have a much brighter display, obviously using the white element. So they can go, I think they said something like from, you normally operate this thing at about 2,500 nits. They've actually demonstrated in the lab you can actually run this thing at closer to 7,000 nits, not for very long, of course, but it'll allow you to have a brighter display, but at lower power. So you save money on power. You can also now reduce the number of LEDs in the backlight, which is a main cost driver, of course. So the total cost and total cost of ownership will actually be lower and offering a brighter display. And they say they have actually been able to maintain the 72% of NTSC color gamut that they have on a traditional RGB panel. So that's pretty important news. One more thing to talk about is their 98-inch. Let's go take a look at that. I'm over in the other part of the LG booth now. Back of me are 3 of their new 98-inch UHD panels that are designed for professional use. As you can see, they're in portrait mode, showing this video. I think this video, we looked at it carefully. It looks like it's one 4K video that's been stretched across these 3 panels. It does have some issues with it, which is why I think that's what they're doing here. These are a brand new product. They haven't specified exactly when the timing is going to be, although they're getting very good response for it, so they're going to try and make the availability sooner rather than later. I've heard it's the dealer price is around $15,000 with retail somewhere in the $30,000 per display price point. What's interesting about this is the connectivity. This is the first time that they've added DisplayPort 1.2 to these, as well as HDMI 2.0. So what that means is they can now do 4K 60 frames per second. There's also a built-in HEVC decoder. So again, these capabilities seem very much borrowed from the consumer side of the house. And it replaces, will augment anyway, an 84-inch 4K panel that they launched last year, which only supported 30 frames per second. Color gamut is unspecified on this, but I would imagine it looks very close to Rec 709 right now. But I think they have had some inquiries to go beyond that. For example, the ability to show a leather handbag is not quite fully represented in the color gamut of this display right now. Clearly targeted for retail and signage applications. In this case, one application to put a camera above this, so a person can go into a shop. They can kind of turn around, and the camera will create a 3D model of them. And then with some third-party software, you can then put on various clothes and dresses and whatnot, and have that shown life-size of you on the display. So pretty cool application. The one last thing that LG showed here is a prototype of a transparent display. Most transparent displays are in the 5 or 6% range. They showed one with 17% transparency. It is a prototype, so we'll have to see if that comes to market later. That's the story from LG at InfoComm. Chris Chinnock for Display Central.